Okay, guys, welcome to week 7 of your second 9 weeks, and we are actually going to be talking about adding and subtracting rational numbers. We started this last week. I hope you've watched the video and done everything, because if you have not watched the video on adding and subtracting rational numbers from last week with manipulatives, with the chips and the number lines, you need to go back and do that. The reason I pulled this up here is because your assignment 12 from last week, you were supposed to create a poster. You could do it in Google Slides or Google Docs. And what we wanted you to do was to create a poster that has the rules for adding rational numbers with same signs and different signs, and then also one that has subtracting rational numbers with the change rule. So this is an example that Mr. Norton and I created, and it's just the one-page example. And I want to go through some of this with you guys, because the reason you guys had to do that assignment last week was to start you on this week's assignment. This week we are just doing the adding and subtracting, and we're not using the number lines or the integer chips. Okay, so let's go through. It says adding rational numbers. So in rational, we're just looking at integers right now. We're not looking at all rational numbers with fractions and decimals, but keep in mind they do the exact same thing. Okay, so we have, if you are adding rational numbers, it says if you have the same signs, which means they're both positive or they're both negative, you just add and you keep the sign. So if it's positive 4 and positive 5, 4 plus 5 is positive 9. The same goes if it's negative 4 plus negative 5, then negative 4 plus negative 5 is negative 9. So you add these two together and you keep the sign. Okay, so if you have a positive plus a positive, it is going to be a positive. If it's a negative plus a negative, it's just going to be a negative. And so you add them together. Now, if you have different signs, it says subtract and take the sign that has the greatest absolute value. And if you guys remember back a few lessons ago, absolute value means distance from 0. Okay, distance from 0. And so if we look at that, if we had a number line and we have negative 4 and positive 5, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is right here. If this is 0, and 1, 2, 3, 4 is right here. And so 5 has actually got a larger distance from 0, so it is positive, which means that if you have 5 minus 4 is 1, and since the 5 has a greater absolute value, then your answer will be 1. There again, says 4 plus negative 5. This one right here. Here's example 1. Here's example 2. So 4 plus negative 5. Well, subtract. 5 minus 4 is 1. And because the 5 has a greater distance from 0, it's one more than 0 or one more than 4, then your sign is negative. You have a negative 1. Okay. All right, so these are the rules for adding rational numbers. All right. And I hope that as of last week, you started to understand this concept, that if you have the same signs, you add and keep the sign. If you have different signs, you subtract, and it's going to keep the sign of the largest absolute value. What about subtracting? So it says subtracting rational numbers. So the big rule here that we have to remember is the change rule. Okay, so let's keep the first number the same. So the first number in any of our subtraction is going to be the same. All right, now change the subtraction sign to an addition sign. That would be your sign. Like, let's say if you have 4 minus 5, right? So you change this sign, your subtraction sign, to an addition sign, and then change the sign, the second number, to its opposite. So the opposite of positive 5 is negative 5. So it's change. So now you just refer back to the addition rules. So if we have 4 plus negative 5, we have opposite signs. So what are we going to do? We're going to subtract and take the sign of the largest absolute value. So 5 minus 4 is 1. And since 5 has the greater absolute value, then it is a negative 1. And these examples right here, that is this one here. Let's try the second one. We have negative 4 minus negative 5. Okay, well, if we do our change rule, we change the subtraction to addition, and we change the sign of the second number, not the first number, but the second number. So now we would rewrite this as -4 plus 5. So we have opposite signs. We have a +5 and a -4. So our rule is subtract. 5 minus 4 is 1. 5 has the greater absolute value, so our answer stays positive. Okay. Our next example is 5 minus -4. Now we do our change. So we say change the subtraction to an addition and change the sign of the second number, make it addition. I call it add the opposite. We're adding the opposite of -4, which is +4. So if you add the opposite, you have 5 plus +4, change, you have 9. Because the two signs, 5 plus 4, both positive, and so when you add them, you get +9. Our last example for this is -4 minus 5. Okay, so we do our change. So I'm going to rewrite this actually down here. -4, change the negative to a positive, and change the sign of the second number. So add the opposite. So the opposite of 5 is -5. So now we have -4 plus -5. We have the same signs, so they're both going to be negative. Add them, you have -9. Okay, so I hope this helps, and hopefully it helps solidify what you were learning last week about the rules of adding and subtracting integers. Now what we're going to do is we're going to practice this, okay? So I'm going to go to your iExcel for the week, and I know that your iExcel standards are going to be add integers is your first one. That's 7C4. So I'm going to go to adding integers. And if you are comfortable with these rules, this should not take you very long at all to get to an 80 or even 100 SMART score. All right, so we have -5 plus +1 plus 1. So we have opposite signs, so we have to subtract. So 5 minus 4, or 5 minus 1 is 4. And because 5 has a greater absolute value, it's going to be -4. Okay. 1 plus -1. So these are opposites. And I know that if anything, if you add two opposites together, you always get 0. That's the rule of opposites. Okay. -1 plus -2. So we have two negatives. So we add them together and keep the sign. So our sign is negative. So it's -3. Right? 5 plus -10. We have opposite signs. We have a +5 and a -10, so we subtract them. 10 minus 5 is 5, and 10 has a greater absolute value, so we have -5 as our answer. Okay, all right. -10 plus -1, we have both of the signs are negatives, so we just add them, keep the sign, so it's -11. Okay, -2 plus 8, we have different signs, so we subtract. 8 minus 2 is 6, and because 8 has a greater absolute value, it's going to stay positive. 10 plus 7, they're both positive, so we just add them together, and it stays positive. Okay, -5 plus -1. They're the same signs, and so 5 plus 1 is 6, and they are negative, so we have -6. Alrighty. 5 plus -8, they are opposites, or they are opposite signs, sorry. So we subtract. So 8 minus 5 is 3, and because 8 has the greater absolute value, it's going to be -3. All right. -3 plus 10, they are different signs, so we're going to subtract. 10 minus 3 is 7, and because 10 has a greater absolute value, it's going to stay +7. Okay, 4 plus 8, they're both positive, and so the answer will be positive, so our answer is 12. -9 plus 4, we have opposite signs, different signs, so we're going to subtract. 9 minus 4 is 5, and 9 has a greater absolute value, so it's -5. Okay, 6 plus 7, they're both positive. We add them together. And 52 plus 40, they're both positive, so we add them together. So 5 and 4 is 9, and 2 and 0 is 0, so 92. Or 2 plus 0 is 2, excuse me. Okay, look here, we already have a SMART score of 81. But if we want to continue, we would say these two are opposite signs, so we would subtract 76 minus 27, and then it would be positive because 76 is greater than 27. Okay, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to go back to our main screen here that tells us what our next topic is. And our next topic is actually going to be C7C, it's subtracting 9, 7C9, so subtracting integers. All right, so if you've got the hang of adding integers, what you need to do is you need to probably rewrite these down so you don't get fooled. Because if you look at this and say, oh, that's -2 minus 2, that's 0, that's not the truth, okay? So I'm going to use my pen tool here, and I'm going to say add the opposite, which is change, right? So we have -2 plus -2, so it makes it look a little different. So -2 plus -2 is going to be, we have the same signs. And so it's going to be -4 because you add them and you keep the sign. Okay. All right. So this one is 5 minus -2. So we are going to do change, add the opposite. So now we have 5 plus +2, which makes them both the same signs, and that you just add them and keep the sign. So our answer is 7. All right. The next one, we have -4 minus -3. First thing we do is change. Okay. So now we have -4 plus 3, which means that they are different signs. So the rules for different signs is subtract. So 4 minus 3 is 1, and 4 has a greater absolute value. So our answer is actually -1. So 4 plus 3, or -4 plus 3, subtract, take the sign of the biggest absolute value. Okay, 8 minus 5. Now, I know you probably don't need to do change on this, but if you did, you'd say add the opposite, which probably makes it more complicated than just 8 minus 5. But 8 plus -5 is +3 because the 8 has a greater absolute value. So we just subtract and take the sign of the biggest absolute value. Okay, looks like my mark didn't go away, even though I'm about to put one there. Let's see. So now I have -4 minus 1, right? So we're going to do add the opposite, change. So now we have -4 plus -1. So now they're the same sign. So what do? You add them, and you take the sign that it is, so it's -5. Okay. The next one we have is we're going to do change, add opposite. So this becomes -1 plus +10. So we have what signs? Different signs. So we have 10, if we have different signs, you subtract. So 10 minus 1 is 9. And since 10 has a greater absolute value, it's going to stay positive. So we hit submit. Good. This next one. This is change. We have 10 minus -6 becomes 10 plus +6. So 10 plus +6, same signs, you add them together. Oops, 16, I almost hit the wrong button. Okay, erase this. Okay, now we have 3 minus -9, so add the opposite. Change. change. So now we have 3 plus 9. They are the same sign. So we add and keep the sign. They're both positive, so the answer will be positive. 9 plus 3 is 12. Okay, 5 minus 1. Like I said, some of these are easier just to leave them alone. But if we changed it, it's 5 plus negative 1. They're opposite signs. So we subtract 5 plus negative 1 is 4. Okay, 5 minus 1 is 4. 5 plus negative 1 is 4. All right. All right, let's look at this one. It's negative 10 minus 4. So we are going to do change, add the opposite. So now we have negative 10 plus negative 4. They are the same sign. What would the answer be? Hope you said negative 14, because they are the same sign, so you add and keep the sign. All right, the next one we do change. So we have negative 2 plus positive 6. So we have different signs. So we subtract, and 6 minus 2 is 4, and because 6 has the greater absolute value, it is going to be positive 4. Okay, next one we have negative 1 minus negative 8. So let's change. So we make that negative 1 plus 8. Now we have what type of signs? We have different signs, so we subtract. 8 minus 1 is 7, and 7, positive 8 has the greater absolute value, so our answer is positive. Alrighty, we have negative 1 minus 7. We're going to change, add the opposite. We have negative 1 plus negative 7, so we have what? Same signs or different signs? We have same signs, so we add them, and our answer is going to be negative 8. Let's do one more. And delete this, erase it. Okay, we have negative 48 minus 16. So we're going to say add the opposite or change. So now we have negative 48 plus negative 16. Okay, so they're both the same sign. So now we just have to add. So 6 plus 8 is 14. Add 1. So 8, 4, 5, 6, 64. And it's going to be negative 64. And I'm at 81. If we wanted to do the next one, we would add the opposite, change. It would be 99 plus 92. I think that would give us 191. So, but we're going to stop there, and we're going to go back to our main screen, and we're going to do our last learning, our last IXL objective, and that's actually on word problems. So it's the 14, so 7C14. Okay, so it says, read this word problem. Amanda is playing her new video game, Track Runner. At first, she earned 20 points for winning a sprint. Then the next race, she got negative 25 points when she knocked over most of her hurdles. What is Amanda's total score? To solve the problem, Amy added 20 plus negative 25 and came up with the answer of 5 points. Is Amy correct? Why or why not? So let's think about this. If we do, this is an addition, so our rules are we have to subtract because they're different signs, and then take the absolute value of the highest number. Well, so 25 minus 20 is 5, and then let's see, let me get my pen here. It's 5, but my absolute value is actually going to be negative, so my answer is negative 5. So let's see. I don't think Amy is correct because she said the answer is 5. No, the answer should be negative 5, not 5, because Amanda lost more points than she gained. I agree with that one. No, Amy should have subtracted 20 minus negative 25 because Amanda earned negative points. If we did change, that would be adding the 20 and the 25, so that is incorrect as well. So we have got the correct one. Okay, on a cold February morning, Colton checked the temperature on his phone and saw that it was -3. When he checked again after school, the temperature had dropped 3 degrees. Now, drop goes down, right? What was the temperature after school? To solve the problem, Ellen subtracted -3 minus -3 and came up with the answer of 0. Is Ellen correct? Why or why not? Okay, so let's think about this. I'm going to just draw a thermometer out here. Okay, it's a very, very twisty thermometer. But if we're at -3, right here is -3, and 0 is up here, correct? 0 is up here. Okay, so if it says that it was at -3 and he checked after school, temperature dropped 3. So we know from previous lessons, dropping is going down. So 1, 2, 3. So I would say, since this is -1 and -2, 0, -1, -2, -3, then this would be -4, -5, -6. So it looks to me like the temperature should be -6, not 0, because if we were saying -3 minus -3, that's actually doing add the opposite, change, which means it would be -3 plus 3, which is 0. And I don't believe the temperature went up to 0. So I don't think Ellen is correct. No, Ellen should have said -3 plus 3 because she needed to add the starting temperature to change the temperature. That would also equal 0, so that one's incorrect. Because -3 minus -3 is the same thing as saying -3 plus 3. No, Ellen should have subtracted -3 minus 3 because the temperature started at -3 and dropped 3. I agree with this one. All right, let me erase my little thermometer here. So some of these you'll have to use some common sense on. You just have to, if you have to draw something out to the side or on your paper, that would be completely fine. The afternoon temperature in Biscoff Bay was -2 degrees Fahrenheit. By midnight, a warm front moved in and the temperature rose 11 degrees. What was the change in temperature from afternoon to midnight? Okay, so let's think about this. If it was -2, and then a warm front suggested the temperature got warmer. So that means the thermometer went up instead of down. Okay, and rose, the word rose also suggests that the temperature was going upwards, right? We want to go up with the temperature, not down with temperature. Okay, what is the change in temperature from afternoon to midnight? Okay. All right, so I'm going to draw my thermometer again. Hey, my line was a little straighter that time. And I'm going to start at -2. Okay. And it says that it rose to 11. Didn't rise 11 degrees, it rose to 11 degrees. So let's say -1, this is 0, okay? And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. This is 11. So it rose to 11 degrees, right? Okay. To solve the problem, Ross subtracted 11 minus -2, which would be change, and that gives us 11 plus 2, which is 13 degrees, and came up with the answer 13. Is Ross correct or not? Well, we can either say Ross is correct. Let's read our others. No, the answer should have been 9, not 13, because the difference between 11 and 2 is 9. Okay, no, Ross should have added -2 plus 11 because the temperature rose. Okay. Temperature rose to 11 degrees. All right, so if it rose to 11, let's count how many degrees it actually rose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So technically, I would have probably started at, if you want to find the difference, you could have said -2 minus -11, or -11, sorry, but they just said 11 minus -2. It's still going to be 13 degrees, okay? So yes, Ross is correct because it did go up 13 degrees. Now this is a little bit confusing because it's 11 minus -2, but the question is how far did it go up? And it went up 13 degrees. This one is 9 degrees, and -2 plus 11 also equals 9 degrees, so we know that this cannot be correct. So it has to be this one here. And it also says the change in temperature, which refers to subtraction. Okay? That one was the tough one. All right, let's do another one. So if you get to these and you think, well, this doesn't make a lot of sense, what I would do is I would do the math on each one of these and see which outcome suits the picture or table that you do that works out best. And just like the last one, the two of the answers were actually 9, so you're not going to have, those are both wrong because they were both the same answer. So the other one was 13, so you knew that was the answer. Even if you didn't understand how they got 13, you knew that 13 was the answer. Okay, a gopher was digging 8 inches below ground. To avoid a tree root, it dug 3 inches deeper. What is the position of the gopher now relative to the surface? To solve the problem, Miles subtracted -8 minus 3 and came up with the answer of -11 inches. Is Miles correct? Why or why not? Okay, so let's start with our little, I still like doing a vertical number line. If we start at the ground level here is 0, right? And the little dude dug 8 inches, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? This is 8 inches below ground. So we're at -8 because it's below the ground. And then it says that to avoid a root, it dug 3 inches deeper, and deeper means going down further. So we're going to do deeper. So if we're here at 8, and this is going from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we are at -11. So -8 minus 3 more, or -8 plus -3. We could have wrote that as change, and wrote plus -3 does work. So this one says Miles is correct. I assume that was right. Let's read the other two. No, the answer should have been -5, not -11, because the difference in the absolute value is 5. No, Miles should have subtracted 8 minus 3 because the gopher dug deeper. Well, the reason this one doesn't work because if he was at 8, that would be +8, which would be above the surface, and then he dug down. So neither one of these are correct, so it's got to be this one. All right, I'm going to do one more with you guys, and then I'm going to let you guys do these on your own. It takes me a while to erase all my little lines here. Okay, so Tara did a science experiment. The beginning experiment of her saltwater solution was -2 degrees Celsius. By the end of the experiment, the solution temperature was 24 degrees Celsius. What was the change in temperature? Okay, so let's look at this, okay? It was -2 and went all the way to +24. Okay, so I'm going to draw a line this way this time. Well, let me keep on going here. Draw my line. It's not very good. Hold on. Let me try this again, people. All right. Okay, so I'm going to put 0 here. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm going from -2 to +24. So if I go back 1, 2 here, that's where I start, -2, 2 from 0. Okay, by the end of the experiment, the solution was 24. It wasn't -24, it's +24. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. This would have probably been easier to do it on paper. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 21, 22, 23, 24. This is at 24. All right, so let's think about this. How far are we away from 0 to 24? Well, I hope you guys think we're 24 spaces between 0 and 24, because that's what we are. There's 24 spaces between 0 and 24. Well, how many spaces is between 0 and -2? We got 2 spaces. The absolute value of -2 is 2, so we're 2 spaces away from 0. Well, if you look at this, we have 24 and then 2 more spaces, so we're actually 26 spaces from -2 all the way to 24. Because we have to do from 0 to 24, and then we also have to count these other 2 that's below 0. So if you do it this way, if you draw a number line and you're trying to figure out how far apart you are on something, this is the easiest way to represent that it's not 22. You don't say 24 minus 2. You say that would actually be 24 minus -2. So it would look like this as an equation: 24, because we're saying the difference, and so that's subtraction, minus -2. And when we do that, our rules are add the opposite, right? So we change, and they are 26. So technically, we are 26 spaces away, 26 degrees. All right, I will stop there. The first 2 is going to take you no time at all, but if you know the rules for adding and know the rules for subtracting, on these, you're going to have to take a little bit more time and try to understand. If you will come to our Google Meets on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, we go over these with you. They're always at 9 a.m. and our Meet code is ECMS 7 Math, MATH. We will be there at 9 o'clock. You guys come and we will work these out. You guys have a great day.